Welcome to Fantastic Vision. Please subscribe us before you watch today's video. As we all know, in order to encircle and block the development of Chinese semiconductor chips, the United States once joined Japan and the Netherlands to join the chip tripartite agreement. Because of this agreement, China's domestic technology companies have suffered unfair treatment from Japan, the Netherlands and other countries for a long time. But fortunately, the chain reaction of the chip agreement has finally appeared, and the United States has also paid some prices to win over its allies. According to a report released by the South China Morning Post, the latest chip export restrictions issued by the United States did not restrict some of China's largest chip manufacturers, including Changshan Storage Technology. This is actually very strange, because the United States has been eyeing Changshan Storage in the past and has put the company on the blacklist for fear that such a strong company will allow domestic chips to rise completely and also snatch the market share of American companies in China. Now, in such a large-scale export restriction, they did not restrict this company. Why is this? It's a bit interesting. They don't want to, but they dare not. According to people familiar with the matter, the reason why the United States did not restrict this company is because one of their allies, Japan, is very opposed to this matter. The reason is very simple. Tokyo Electronics of Japan is the main supplier of these companies. If these companies are blacklisted, it will undoubtedly be a big blow to Tokyo Electronics. So at this time, the United States gave in. This means that these companies will not be affected by the large-scale ban, and can still cooperate normally with companies containing American technology and equipment. It is not surprising that Japan would oppose this restriction. As early as when the three-party chip agreement came out, although Japan opened 23 types of bans under the repeated urging of the United States, the scope of restrictions was even more severe than that of American semiconductors at the time. But in fact, Japan did not completely close the channels for cooperation between the two sides. For example, Tokyo Electronics is still the most important supply chain for China's semiconductor foundry companies to date, and the revenue of the Chinese market accounts for 45% of the company's total revenue. In addition, the Japanese side once claimed that they left a channel for companies to apply for shipments, and they are willing to cooperate with both sides as long as there are companies applying. To put it bluntly, Japanese companies do not want to be cannon fodder, and the United States naturally has to show its attitude, but it does not want to lose its own interests. Now that the scale of restrictions is larger, they naturally have to take advantage of every opportunity to maintain their own corporate market interests. To some extent, this is also the price the United States paid for its original chip tripartite agreement. But even though the United States compromised this time, it does not mean that China can continue to fantasize that they can really let go. Because from the perspective of memory chips, China's future is almost cut off. After all, the restrictions of the United States still have a great impact on the current HBM products, which makes it more difficult for China to develop in the field of AI intelligence in the future. So in many cases, China cannot pin its hopes on the allies of the United States, and their temporary opposition cannot relieve China's real crisis. What's more, from the current large-scale actions of the US semiconductor team, China has long learned a cruel signal, that is, the US semiconductor will spare no effort to use their current advantages to suppress the development of the outside world, so as to continue to maintain its position of US technological hegemony. Today, what China really needs to do is to make domestic chips meet domestic needs as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be difficult for China to find a way out in this process. Fortunately, many official associations have asked to be cautious in purchasing American chips and firmly focus on domestic chips. So, if things get really serious, will the US wake up completely because of the opposition of its own allies? In short, the US did not restrict China's Changshan storage and other chip manufacturers because of Japan's opposition. Japan is an important supply chain for China's semiconductors, and the US and Japan maintain their respective market interests. The US uses its technological advantages to suppress the outside world, and domestic chips need to be independent as soon as possible. The official association advocates cautious purchases of US chips and firmly focuses on domestic production. What is the use of the United States' frequent sanctions on China? Even American netizens know that such measures are futile. Knowing that they are useless, why does the United States impose sanctions 3 times in 3 years? To answer this question with Musk's words, if these despicable means are not used to intervene, Chinese companies may quickly occupy the world. But for China, the negative impact of sanctions is only temporary. The greater the pressure, the greater the motivation. It may not be a bad thing to force companies to follow Huawei's old path. For example, in the past few years, under the US ban, China has successfully completed the investigation of the chip industry and has a clear understanding of the current actual level. In the future, under strong pressure, I believe that more companies will realize the importance of technology, and more people will join the ranks of independent research and development. In the first half of this year, China's domestic chip design investment increased by 35% overall, and major companies are on the road to tackling key problems. Welcome to leave comments, likes and shares.